a mission is kind of the North Star and really ought to be the guiding point. So the institutional mission and the mission statement, and oftentimes the two should be close to the same. But say, if you look back 25 years or even 10 years, mission statements were very long, cumbersome, and often very difficult to follow in terms of driving a strategic plan or driving a presidential search. So the, the key thing is the mission is about the purpose of the institution and how the institution will deliver on that purpose. And stating that in as succinct a fashion as possible is really critical. I often turn to four questions, five questions, I guess, that kind of help me, and as I'm talking with other people about the mission and the board's responsibility, but the institution as a whole. Who are we? And what do we believe? And that's that we are a higher educational institution. That can be a very simple response. Whom do we serve? What programs do we offer? In what form and where do we offer them? And then something that's become very important in the last 10 to 15 years, how do we know that we're accomplishing our purpose? How do we know that we're effective in doing what we're doing? It's really important once you've developed a mission statement that you're comfortable with or that can drive strategic process and strategic thinking. It's really important to ensure that it's current, that the language is current, that it's focused on the realities of the institution. And just in terms of kind of staying on top of the mission statement, I've seen some interesting examples of how best to do that. A number of institutions, usually kind of faith-based institutions, will have. I mean, they'll start meetings and a retreat with a prayer, but they also have put the mission statement kind of up there in the same way. And they have a mission moment at the beginning of a meeting or at the beginning of a retreat where they take a look at the mission and they consistently do this from meeting to meeting, and they look at and they reflect on how the mission should relate to the agenda that they're going to be involved in, either for that meeting or for the retreat. So that's a good thought. Oftentimes, when the board itself is setting up plans for a retreat, good time to say, well, let's at least reflect a bit on mission and mission statement. In advance of a presidential search, a really good time when you're taking stock of kind of what's the status of the institution, what leadership do we need, that whole question around what's our mission, and what does our mission statement say? So same thing's true with the reaccreditation process. There are all of these good opportunities, many of which don't get used very often, to just stop for a moment and say, let's focus on what our mission is, and let's focus on what it means today as we have this meeting, as we go through this reaccreditation process, this retreat, this presidential search process. Once you have a mission and you've kept it current, it's very, very important that the board and the senior leadership team kind of include mission right at the front end of the institutional effectiveness assessment, constantly starting that process with a sense of what is our mission, what is the plan we've had to accomplish that mission in the time frame that we've envisioned for it, what were the benchmarks we had. In an operational sense, it's relatively easy to put into play key performance indicators that will reflect directly on the mission. When you say what are the key educational, financial, and governance performance indicators? A board doesn't just need to focus on the operational performance indicators of the campus and the institution, but also should on the mission itself. If we use retreats, if we use benchmark institutional events, searches, new strategic planning process, reaccreditation process, as kind of those moments when we're going to assess, and we do the key performance indicators and strategic priorities assessment, we should be pretty confident that we're accomplishing the mission of the institution.